So for me, Cyndi Lauper was one of those artists that I really skipped over on the first go,
Oh.
for sure. Yeah, wasn't something that was like up my alley. I thought she was like a girls only artist.
Girls just want to have fun.
Yeah,
That gave it away.
that was like the first hit I remember hearing by her. So yeah, it was kind of like,
This was Time After Time was actually her number one single.
what was it?
It was on the same album as Girls Just Want to Have Fun, I think. But I think that one hit after. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm not sure.
But this one, because I just looked on the wiki page, and this one was her first number one hit.
So at the time in my mind, I grouped her kind of with Madonna, like, because they
Yeah.
both had like outlandish, boisterous female personalities.
Strong femme vibes,
Strong,
yeah.
Strong female vibes, yeah. And I was a teenager, so I was more into other things going on in the 90s. But then more recently, I guess probably in the past 10 years or so, going back and listening to a bunch of Cyndi Lauper's catalog, she's actually like a really gifted songwriter. I think she writes really strong songs.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think she's a really authentic person to the vibe that she was giving off in the 80s. That's just her vibe. That's who she is. She is
boisterous and feathers in her hair. I remember a lot of feathers in her hair.
Not just feathers. I think she had pieces of like different colored things in her hair is what I recall from childhood.
I thought it was just like
and her clothing was
what
just
people
wild.
would call like roach clips back in the day, where it was like the feather hanging on a clip.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No idea what that was called. Just hair clip. It goes in your hair. It's a hair clip.
Paraphernalia, babe.
Oh, well, I was so outside of that realm. Yeah. Well, okay.
I don't know if that's what you wore or not, but that's how I remember it. It's funny how we remember different things.
It is funny. Well, you were just a touch older than me, so you were experiencing a little bit differently.
When did the song come out? Do you know?
83.
Well, I was like twice your age, so.
At this point.
At that point, yeah.
I was just a baby.
83.
83.
Yeah, wow. I would have pictured it more towards the mid or later 80s.
83. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's when we experienced it. Probably because that's when MTV started to hit.
Yeah, maybe
And
so.
then I think everybody was making the music videos, and you have to vet me on this. This is just my thought.
Your recollection.
They were going back over the hits and making sure that they were covered in the music video style. Like if they were still doing really good.
Going back over the hits, I think they were just, some of those songs had longevity,
Yeah.
And they would play the song, like the video. They would play certain videos, like
Well, I
ongoing.
think we've talked about our consumerism of music, in our more recent history. I think we consumed music a little bit differently in the 80s too, that you wanted to create relationship with those songs a little bit more than the 10 to 30 second clips of songs that we get integrated with today. Like
It's interesting because
inundated
there was
with
even a song about it, like video killed the radio star. Right?
Yeah.
Because the whole like MTV is gonna kill music thing. you
Yeah.
know? And actually, it turned out that it like in history when MTV music television was playing videos was probably one of the strongest eras of music.
Yeah.
And then later on, they moved more into the reality-based television and less music videos, and it was other things that killed music, like not being able to make money at it because of the great
Industry,
like Spotify and things like that.
Well, I do know. I felt like, in my teenage years, MTV was big, VHS was big, and country music videos were big too. And we didn't have cable in my home, but one of my friends did. And whenever I'd spend the night, we would wake up and have the music video going almost like one would for having the radio going in the background while we would clean up whatever
Right.
chore that we were assigned to do.
Yeah.
We would do that while that was blaring, and we would take our breaks and sit and watch the stories playing out.
It was nice to have music on the television that was playing. Basically, music that was relevant to the era that you were living in, as far as growing up, They definitely cater to mid-20s, or late teens to mid-20s,
Well, we've
early
talked a lot
30s.
about the stories that we tell ourselves about the music, and I feel like with the music video, that was an opportunity for the artist, or at least their producer, to tell a visual story kind of from that artist's standpoint. You get more of the story that they were trying to tell more than the one that you tell yourself in your head.
Sure.
So
Yeah, you would definitely associate, oh, this is what the artist wants
yes.
it to be about.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was the case a lot of times because they were hiring producers.
Yeah, well, that's possible. I have a feeling, though, that some of those artists, especially in the 80s and early 90s, really might have put their foot down about,
I don't know.
That's not the story I want to tell.
I think that was like the height of the nefariousness, especially in the 90s, of the record labels.
You think that was the height? You think it hasn't reached peak yet? Or you think that it reached peak then and it's not now?
I don't think they have any control anymore, really, because I don't think that artists ain't making money, so, they don't have, a lot of artists don't even have music videos now, it's like they are trying, I think, like the rest of us, record labels are trying to scramble and find new ways to make money, and it might be in a nefarious way of taking more money from the artist, but I think that, I think their greed was at a height maybe then because the industry was at a height.
Okay, I can see that. Well, it was when we were switching over from cassettes to CDs, and I felt as a young consumer really taken advantage of, because I had just bought that cassette tape last year, and now the way to listen to it was on CD. So you had to get the CD in order to listen properly.
I was excited about the new tech because I thought it sounded really good. I miss recording records, but I was growing into an age where I wanted to collect more. And I still was collecting records at the time, and they were really cheap then when CDs came out. I remember being able to buy a lot of records for quarters at yard sale. And then I do remember that when they launched CDs, I remember, and maybe I don't think I made this in my head, but the promise is that CDs are expensive now because it's new technology, but the cost of the players and the discs are going to come down. But they never really did.
I think some of the players came down, but that was the ones that go in your house, which people increasingly didn't want to have.
Well,
it was hard you listening in your car.
Because people embraced the CD, they did away with the single almost became obsolete because singles were released on MTV and they were played so much that you could hear them almost anytime you wanted to. Right. But at the same time, a single CD was so expensive to buy compared to like a 45 record. It didn't even make sense. It didn't even make sense to buy it.
And it was a pain in the butt.
It was
to
like
put
anywhere
the CD
from like
in
$4 to $6 for a single.
For one song.
So it just wasn't the thing.
It's not as satisfying to play a CD as it is to play a platter, like a record.
It's not, but I think it's still more satisfying to play a CD than it is to press play on your phone.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Now, and sound quality wise, I mean, it's great if you have, I remember like everybody really worshipped like the home stereo setup. And nowadays it's like hardly anybody has a home stereo. It's a Bluetooth speaker. That's the home stereo.
I mean, and it works because it's versatile and you can carry it outside and do all kinds of things.
The whole dynamic range is lost in these frequencies.
Different.
And it's definitely nothing like the artist intended when they recorded it.
Yeah, it's different.
But, that being said, do you remember, jumping back to Cyndi Lauper and MTV for a minute, do you remember anything about this music video?
This one?
Yeah,
I don't. And I didn't brush up on it either. So
the only thing I remember, and I did watch it again, like when I actually learned the song from the official music video.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, I skipped over it, so I don't remember what it was, but it's one of those music videos where it takes like a minute or two to get into the song.
Right.
Because they're doing storytelling.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't really remember what the music video was about, but I do remember, even before I watched it, that it ends with Cyndi Lauper sitting in a window, and I always pictured it to be like New York City, and it's raining, and she says the time after time part, and it's like it repeats so many times. It does, yeah. And she gets like really quiet into like a whisper, almost like she's crying in the window.
It's really nostalgic, yeah.
And it's like, it's like it has a real sense of longing, and in that sense of what you were talking about, like the artist's vision or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought that scene really captured,
Yeah,
like the longing of times gone by.
you feel like she was acting the character, right? So I feel like when the vocal artist is acting the character, that they will give the performance that they mean to give.
Maybe.
I feel that way.
Yeah, I know that MTV. What I remember it for, especially as a young and middle teen, was that I was allowed to watch it because it was music a lot. And we didn't have cable right away because for the longest time we had a rural house, and it was like we had the antenna that you have to wait for it to on the roof that would turn.
Right.
And
you had a fancy one. We had tinfoil on the top of.
We didn't live close enough to have that. There was no stations close enough, so we had to have the big antenna on our roof. But then I remember when cable came up, and I guess I was in my mid-teens maybe, and music television, because all the kids were talking about it in school. It was a hot topic in school for sure.
Yeah.
And I remember getting it and wanting to be part of that crowd, so you'd have it playing all the time, like you said, in the background. But I also remember there was a lot of controversy because it was a cable-only station.
Yep.
So they were, the FCC. I don't know if they had their claws in it yet or could regulate it.
They were working on it.
They were working on it. They're still sorting it all out, but a lot of the videos were pushing boundaries hard.
It's kind of that shift there within the laws and whatnot, and how much advantage one can take of the artist is the shift that we're experiencing now in streaming. Because I can tell you, as an artist, streaming, while it may be the most convenient way to listen to music, it is not benefiting your artist at all. If you want to listen to one of our songs 100 times, we still don't see like $1.
Right, we see like a third of $1.
For 100 times of somebody listening to
and most of the songs that I would consider my favorite
astronomical.
songs, I don't even know if I've listened to 100 times.
No, even learning them, I don't, that doesn't equate. And I know, like, I don't want to discourage people from listening to your favorite artist's music. Just know that when you're doing that benefit is not reaching the artist at all. What I look at it as and
what I've always done, and, for me, if I like the song and I like the artist, then I buy the CD.
You go buy it.
And sometimes, like, I don't even take this, like, I put the CD on the shelf, and I'll still listen to it on Spotify.
Yep. But you know you're benefiting your artist.
But I know that I've already paid for that. I look at it as Spotify is
convenience.
Because, those of us in this generation.
Or iTunes.
The in-between generation.
iTunes is a little different.
I used to do.
Because you buy it.
Well, if you buy it, but you can, Apple Music, you don't. It's a streaming service as well. And they pay a little better than Spotify, but not much. And they've basically moved to that whole thing. But I remember a day where I would take all my CDs and load them into my computer so I could put them on my iPod so I could stream them.
Yeah.
So I look at it.
And we still have the CDs.
As paying for the CD. That's the cost of me making that my playlist, but Spotify's already made it for me. It's much easier to just go through and click.
And sometimes, too, like, I love having the physical copy, whether it's an LP or a CD. I like the tactile nature of having it, but I also like a t-shirt or something, or to buy you a hat or something to help support that artist.
I like
that
music
we like.
Culture. I love music so much that I like everything that surrounds it, and like that even included MTV at the time,
right?
And because
I love that your family supported your love of music so hard.
And I don't know.
They were really there for it.
Sometimes they supported it, but sometimes it was more I think that they just weren't in the way, like some parents
encouraged you
but
to.
Some parents get in the way.
Yeah, I get that.
They don't support, So, certainly as I grew up older and started to play music, the support was there,
Absolutely.
But I think that, the music culture is a big thing. And I think music culture is sadly less and less existent. And what I mean by that is if you look at the 80s and 90s, it was like you had the home stereo. That was part of the culture. Right. The going to the store to buy the physical product and searching
going through the
bins.
Yeah.
That was part of the music culture, right?
Well, they even had, do you remember they had the headphones in the stores so you could listen to the sample?
And then MTV was part of the music culture.
Yeah.
And, it created all this imagination too, because like, you know, in my later high school days I got into like the hair metal bands, and it was like, you know, they were totally, they, even if some of them were goody two shoes, they portrayed themselves as like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So it wasn't like, that's a culture that I wasn't familiar with, you know, and it wasn't like you could see it every night on TV, because you didn't have access to all the stuff you have now.
Right.
You know, so there was a persona. Like, they were able to create a persona that was different, you know, and the different bands did this. And, you know, you had the hippie culture of the Grateful Dead and all that stuff. And some of the only ways you would see that, you know, they had the MTV Beach House. You remember that? So it was like all this different beach music, you know, and Jimmy Buffett and the Parrot Heads and all this stuff. And it was these different personas of the music culture that took different aspects of the day that weren't readily available. Now it's like, there's so many
everything's on demand.
Everything's on demand, micro music. You don't have to watch anything you don't like. You don't have to look at anything you don't like.
Even
you don't
commercials.
Have to experience anything.
Yeah.
You know, and the sad part is most people make up their mind within 15 seconds, you know, and it's like,
yeah.
I'll watch movies sometimes that I end up not liking. And I didn't like them in the first 15 minutes, but I don't shut them off, because I still believe that there's an experience there. You
Absolutely,
know?
Yeah.
And same thing with music. It's like, I'll listen to music. Sometimes I'll go to a concert of somebody that I don't even like.
Or that you don't know.
Right. And then when I come back from it, I like it, you know, or whatever, because you open your mind to different experiences. And I think
I found some of my favorite bands that way.
I think
just
the music culture is a big thing, though, and a big reason for all of that, you know. And it's like, I just feel like a lot of the music culture, sadly, has gone by the wayside.
So, looping back around to this song in particular, was there a story that you told yourself? I know you said you watched the video, but was there a story that you told yourself about this song, like when you were learning it?
Well, when I say I watched the video, I didn't really watch it. I was like,
learning,
just listening to music, so I don't remember what the video was about, honestly. I just remembered the last little bit. But, you know, I'd be hard for, this is one of those songs that I've actually not heard that much, but I think it's a great song.
Yeah.
You know? And the story I've always told myself, and I haven't listened to the lyrics really enough to know what it's about, but
it's not a solid story. Just
the thing that I think of is like, you know, I've always thought about, because of the mood that it's in, even though it's more upbeat on the album version, I think that to me it's kind of like one of those reflective songs of like, how do I keep ending up here type of deal. You know, it's like time after time. You know, time after time I get the same result type of feeling. That's the feeling I get from it. But I know that it's probably more about I feel like it's more about relationships.
Yeah.
You know, or it's meant to be more about relationships, but I more internalize it and personalize the lyrics to me.
Okay. Well, when I first heard it, when I was growing up with it, I thought it had something to do with a lost romantic relationship, like something that had gone by the wayside, but they were still friendly toward each other. And if you need me, I'll be there, kind of a thing. But as I've matured listening to the lyrics, I feel like it's more of, you're right on the nose when you say a relationship. It's more of a friendship relationship, and knowing how I, the type of friend I am, I should say. I am the type of person that I'm not a good reacher-outer person. I don't generally reach out. So I'll respond, though, if somebody reaches out to me. And I have friends that we get together every 2 to 3 years. We info dump about each other's lives and enjoy a couple, 2-3 hours together. And then we sign off for another 2 or 3 years. But they know if they had need in the middle of the night that they could call me and I could call them, and we would show up for each other anytime, like, and over again, because it's a deep relationship, but it's not a communal relationship. We're not living in community with each other, but we care about each other from a distance. And when we get together, it's like we never left. It's like we pick right up where we left off. And it can be kind of sad for that time to pass between us. And I love the line in there, after my picture fades and darkness has turned to gray. Because it can be taken a couple of different ways. And it's like the deep spaces in the picture, like the shadow bits have lightened up a little bit. So it's kind of like when you live in community with somebody day after day after day after day, you get both the really good and the really bad parts. But when you're not in community with somebody, you're really just hitting the high points.
Sure.
So those deep, shadowy parts aren't necessarily present. But also, it's kind of like the day is dawning. Like when you're meeting up with somebody again, like it's kind of a dusk feeling to it. So, I don't know. I just liken it to those friendships for me that are very meaningful to me, though we don't live in community with each other. And I think it's a beautiful way to express that sentiment poetically, even if that's not necessarily what she meant by it. I really internalize it that way.
I'm excited to hear what everybody else thinks it's about this week, you know, and what their connection is to the song.
Well, I thought it was really cool too that we had thought to initially shout this out to Samantha, and we're giving it to both her and Kai this time, and they're our friends that we don't see that often. He's also in a band that we like to play around with here in Tennessee, so I thought it was
fitting with your feelings.
Yeah, with my feelings. I was like, oh, this is really perfect. This fits right in. So
nice.
Yeah. Hey friends, Ashley of Sugar Lime Blue here. I wanted to draw your attention to something we've started doing on our Facebook. We've been featuring one of our special Sugar Lime Blue tie-dye t-shirts weekly. Here's an example of one of them. You guys seem to be enjoying this, so we're going to keep it up for a little while. So make sure you're looking for us on Facebook with our special weekly Sugar Lime Blue tie-dye t-shirts.